Welcome to Healing Sense RMT Yoga. I am the RMT with the Healing Sense, and today we have a yoga routine for beginners Vinyasa fitness. It's going to be pretty easy, all on the floor, but we're going to start activating muscles that are really important to remember to use during any yoga routine and start to get the body used to the idea of exercising and engaging certain postures. So today we're just going to start sitting for the time being. Whichever seated, comfortable position you think of. You can sit on a chair if you like, you can sit on the couch. And we'll just start to notice how we're feeling today. Might be a little bit tired, a little bit sore. Maybe your knees hurt, maybe your back hurts, neck, shoulders, whatever it is. Just take a moment and notice the pain that is there and promise that it will be okay today. If anything aggravates the pain, you can take a rest. Might feel a little discomfort, but we're going to try and bring our focus a little bit more inwards and just pay attention to those spots. So noticing when we make a certain movement, if it feels better or worse, just starting to pay more attention to our bodies and being in tune when our bodies want to tell us something. Pain means it's trying to tell us something. And we'll start to focus a little more on our breath today. Breath is always very important. So maybe you're breathing really shallow. You might be breathing up into your chest. Just notice for a moment. And then we'll start to breathe a little more into our abdomen, into our hips if you can. If you can send your breath all the way down to your hips, fill your whole torso. And then release. And notice as you inhale a little bit more and fill up a little bit more with air that your exhales also become a little bit bigger. And by controlling one part, we control the other, and so the breath overall becomes a little deeper, maybe a little slower. And then we'll start to warm up our necks, so you can drop left ear to left shoulder. And half neck circles, bring your chin to your chest as we roll all the way to bring right ear to right shoulder. And back. We'll do a couple of rounds, just getting the neck warmed up a little bit here. Sometimes if the neck is not warmed up, it can get a little sore during any kind of movement. And then we'll bring head back to neutral, do a couple shoulder rolls. Again, just getting a little bit warmed up here. And then we'll bring our arms up overhead and see how high you can get your arms before your elbows have to bend. So if your shoulder range is about here today, then that's okay. And we'll see if we can bring the fingertips overhead. If you have to bend your elbows here, that's okay. Your hands might be just kind of on your head today. They might even just be on your shoulders. Makes it a little bit easier to lift sometimes. And wherever your arms are, if they are on top of the head, imagine that you've got a little string here and you're pulling that string up to get your spine just a little bit longer. So with our spine nice and tall, we're going to take some little twists. We're not using the arms to really pull the body, so it's all coming, if you can, from the abdominal muscles. Try and see if you can inhale, lift the spine tall. Exhale, little twist over to the right. So it'll be a really small twist. I'm not even going 45 degrees. And see if you can look over the right shoulder as well. And bring the head back to neutral. And And then the body back to neutral. Inhale, get the spine nice and tall again. And as we exhale, twisting to the left. Whichever version, wherever your arms are, it's definitely easier if they're shorter, but you can have your arms out as well if you like. And then looking over the left shoulder. And we come back through center with the head. And then the torso comes back to center. Big arm circles here. Might not be able to get your arms all the way through. That's okay today. We're still just warming up. And then we will come to lie on our backs. Keep the knees bent and the feet on the floor. And make sure you've got enough room to lie down here. Make sure that you are comfortable and notice where your lower back is sitting on the mat. It might be really, really curved up and you might have a lot of space under here. It might be really tucked under and already very flat on the mat. Try and come to a spot where you can fit a couple fingers underneath your back, but not the whole hand. And here we'll come back to our breath again. So hands in the lower abdomen. And big inhales in. Try and lift your hands all the way up to the ceiling. As much air as you can, filling your whole torso. And then exhaling, feel your hands as they slowly lower down, emptying out all of your air. Big inhale again. Send the air to your hands first. A little bit of air will still come into the chest, but focus on getting it as low as possible. And then slow exhale like you're blowing out a candle. All the way to the end of that breath. Feel a little bit of a contraction in the abs when you get to the end of your exhale. And notice that it makes your lower back come a little bit flat. That kind of effort at the end of the exhale, you'll feel your spine connect to the mat just a little bit more. A little bit of that space goes away. Big inhale, filling your whole torso. Hands float up. And then blowing out the candle. All the way to the end of that exhale. Feel the contraction. Blow out a little bit more air. Feel more of the abs engage here. Then big inhale. There'll be a much bigger inhale if you've made room. And exhale, slow and controlled. Take the arms to the sides. It doesn't matter which way they're facing, palms up or down. And as we inhale, still keep that focus to the lower abdomen, but lift the arms all the way up and overhead. And as you exhale, bring the arms back down to your sides. 2 more like that. Big inhale in, arms coming up all the way overhead. Your whole torso fills with air. And then slow, controlled exhale as we bring the arms back down. Big inhale, arms overhead. And exhale. Get that little extra bit of air out right at the end. And then relax. Walk your feet up so that the heels are just out of reach of your fingertips. Make sure your feet are about hip width apart. So look at your knees. Make sure they're in line with the hips, in line with the feet. And we'll start to engage the glutes a little bit. So starting to see if we can maybe lift the pelvis up off the floor just a tiny little bit, maybe an inch or so. Or it doesn't even have to lift. You can just activate all through here, all through these glute muscles as though you're about to lift up. So squeezing the glutes, squeeze the whole pelvic floor like you're holding in a fart Really strong. You don't want to fart right now. You're in a yoga class. There's 10 people around you. You don't want to do that to them. It's going to be terrible. Just squeeze and then release. Squeezing the glutes again. This time seeing if we can rise up. Press into the mat with your heels. And release. One vertebrae at a time comes back down if you're lifting up. If you're not lifting up, that's totally okay. You can just activate and release just a little bit. Another big one here. Squeezing the glutes, activating through the backs of the thighs as well here, pressing into the mat with the heels. If you're still rising, press into the mat with the backs of your shoulders as well. Try and get your shoulder blades to meet at your spine. And then slowly release, one vertebrae at a time, coming back down to the mat. And take a moment to relax. We're going to combine those moves here. So squeezing the glutes. Inhale, maybe lift the glutes as the arms come up. And exhale, release, one vertebrae at a time as we blow out the candle and our arms come back down. Inhale, squeeze the glutes, lift up the hips maybe as the arms come up overhead. And exhale, back down we go. One more time, big inhale, lifting the arms up overhead. And exhale. To release. From here, we'll bring the arms just in front of the abdomen, just a little bit off to the side. Put your hands on the tops of your thighs and see if you can slide your fingers a little bit towards the knees and back down. Sliding up, then down, just kind of getting used to the idea here of doing a little crunch. And we'll keep the hands on the knees and we'll tuck the chin into the chest. Got a little notch here at your sternum, so imagine that your chin is going to fit into that little notch. And if you can, lift the head. You can also just activate here. You don't actually have to lift your head all the way off the mat. Just tuck in the chest, tuck your chin to your chest, and pretend that you're going to lift your head. It can just be a little halfway thinking about it kind of action. If you can, lift your head up. Slide your fingers towards the knees and maybe we start to come up into a little bit of a crunch. And then release, hands slide down, head comes down last, and then the chin releases. Keep your jaw relaxed here as well. So tucking the chin in, lifting the head, sliding the hands toward the knees. Maybe you get up into the crunch, maybe you don't, totally okay. And then sliding the hands back down as the vertebrae of your upper back and neck come down one at a time. Head comes down last, chin releases. This time we're going to inhale, bring the arms up overhead first. As you exhale, bringing the arms in, tuck the chin, lift the head, and reach for the knees. And then slide the hands down. Release the head, release the chin, and we'll bring the knees one side and then the other side. Just a couple windshield wipers just to let everything go for a moment. And remembering as we go through the rest of the routine, that ab activation at the end of the exhale, that is that core activation that you want to feel. That feeling of your belly button pressing in towards your lower spine and making sure that your lower spine is straight. You'll still probably have a little bit of a curve, but just we want to make sure we don't have a huge curve in our backs. And I will show you what I mean as we come over to one side, up to sitting, and find tabletop, all fours position. So here it's really easy to get lazy and let your lower back slump underneath, but bringing that core activation in, driving your belly button all the way up towards your lower back, straightens the spine. So that right here, just holding and breathing, making sure your wrists are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hips. And we'll take just a few breaths in here. Big inhale, fill your belly. Exhale, feeling that contraction as we lift the belly button up to the spine. Big inhale, fill your whole torso with air. And exhale, blowing out the candle and just feeling that stabilization here. You don't actually have to move here. Not yet. Big inhale one more time, sending all of your air down into your hips. And exhale. Now from here, we're just going to do a little bit, still in your all fours position with the shoulders. So with the shoulders, you can come forward and back. You see, I'm making the movement really big. You don't have to make it huge. But trying to bring your shoulder blades back and together, like you're trying to get them to reach the spine, and then letting them release as you press away from you. As you press into the mat, you're going to get a little bit of movement. That shoulder blade is going to slide. You might only slide a millimeter. That's okay. Try to imagine it's coming from the shoulder blade, not so much the arm itself. The arm wants to stay where it is. The shoulder blade can move a little. So in our all fours position, bring the shoulder blades back and together. Try and get them to touch in the middle of your spine. And then press into the mat and press away from you. Your shoulder blades will move a little bit. Keeping your spine nice and straight here. Just practicing a little bit of this movement. It might take a little while to be able to really feel it. But you should feel your shoulder blades sliding a little bit closer together and then further apart. And then coming back to center here, as though we're going to dial the fingers out towards the pinky side, as though you're going to turn them. We're going to keep the arms straight and just activate through those hands, pressing all of the fingers into the mat and dialing out towards the pinky side. Feel how maybe that changes the way that your shoulders are sitting. Don't forget your exhales, your abdominal activation here. And then we're going to start playing around a little bit. So lifting up the right arm, bringing it forwards. And then bringing it underneath the left arm. And if you can, bring your right ear to the mat. Make sure your hips don't slide off to one direction or the other. When we come under, sometimes they like to go all sideways. Try and keep them even. If you don't make it all the way down, if you just make it down to the forearm, that's okay. Whichever version you're in, really pressing into the mat with that left hand, dialing out towards the pinky and lifting up all the way, twisting open with the right arm, maybe looking up towards the right hand. And then bringing it back down. Other side, bringing the left arm forwards. And then tucking it underneath the right hand, maybe just coming to the forearm here. And maybe coming all the way underneath left ear to the mat. Keeping the hips even, making sure they don't swing one way or the other way, or forwards or backwards. Want to keep them straight where they are. And pressing into the mat with the right hand, lifting all the way up, twisting open to the left. And releasing back down, all fours. And we'll walk the hands forward about 5 or 6 inches, coming into a plank on our knees here. Keep the abs engaged As we exhale, slowly lowering all the way down. Dial the hands out as we come down to the mat. Doing a little baby cobra here. So keeping the hands on the mat for now. I'm going to lift from the back. So lifting the shoulder blades together. Head is going to come up off the floor. This is a lot of upper back activation. Make sure your head doesn't look up towards the wall in front of you. Just look down right at the front of your mat or just off the front of your mat, depending on how tall you are. And then release. Pressing into the mat with your hands, dial the pinkies out and straightening the elbows. Press the mat away from you. And we'll bring the hips all the way back to the feet and take a little child's pose here. Big inhale all the way through to the lower back. And exhale, release. Pressing into the mat with the fingers again. We're going to come forward, back into tabletop. Take a moment, make sure you're in alignment, wrists under shoulders, knees under hips. And pressing into the mat with both hands. We're going to lift the right leg behind. So we might just straighten that right leg and might just keep the toes on the floor for right now. If you can, imagine you're lifting with the inner thigh and press your heel back towards the wall behind you, like you're about to step your foot to that wall. And maybe lowering the leg and lifting it again if you're here, trying to keep your weight evenly in both hands. Maybe do some little leg circles or ankle circles. One way and then the other way. And then bringing ourselves back to tabletop. Walk the hands forward, coming into our plank on knees. Bring your shoulder blades together, engage your core, and exhale. Blow the candle out as we lower down. Press into the mat with your fingers, bring your shoulder blades together, lift up into little baby cobra here. And then release. Press into the mat again, lift the shoulder blades together, this time straightening the elbows all the way back up to all fours again. We'll do the other leg. So making sure your weight is evenly distributed in both of your hands. Lifting the left foot behind you. Maybe the toes are just still on the ground. And maybe you lift from the inner thigh here, pressing left heel back into the wall as though you are stepping under the wall behind you. Little ankle circles here, or little leg circles. Maybe lowering and lifting, seeing if you can engage the glutes again. Lift from your butt, essentially. And bringing that foot back down, walk the hands forward. You guessed it, our little mini vinyasa here. Exhale as you press down. Inhale, little baby cobra, lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, pressing up to all fours and bringing the hands back, letting the hips come down. One child's pose breath here. Big inhale into your hips, your lower back. Feel your torso there. And then exhale. Press your hands into the mat and come forward to all fours again. And this time, making sure your wrists are under your shoulders, your knees are under your hips, and we'll lift with that right leg again, straightening it out behind you first, and then using your glutes to lift your leg up. If you can. If you're still just on the floor here, that's okay. And then very, very slowly, whichever version you are in, we're going to bend that knee and see if we can bring the right heel towards your right glute, right to the center. So if you're a little bit higher up, it's going to be a little bit harder. If you're lower down, it's going to be a little easier. It's okay to lower it if you have to. And then slowly straightening that leg again. Reach through the right heel. And then lower. Right away, we'll do the left side. Lifting that left leg behind you, using your glute to do so. And keeping it stable in whichever position you have chosen. Maybe if you're down here, just try and keep that angle. Slowly bending that left knee to bring the left heel up towards your left glute. Squeeze if you can, try and get it to connect. It won't. Theoretically, if you're a normal person, you physically can't in this position. And then straightening that knee. Bringing the left leg down, walking the hands out forwards, and baby vinyasa. So big inhale, find your core. Exhale all the way down. Inhale, little baby cobra lift, shoulders back. Exhale, release. Inhale, press all the way up to your plank and walk it back. One child's pose breath. Inhale, your whole torso fills with air. And exhale, just relax for a moment. Pressing the hands into the mat again, coming forward, back to all fours. If your wrists are starting to get tired, it's okay to come up onto fists. So it's a little bit more supportive. Just make sure your weight is coming between the first and second knuckle here. You don't want to lean back on your fists. Try and keep your wrists still underneath the shoulders and those two knuckles here, well, second and third, sorry. First is technically the thumb. Oops. And we're going to lift our legs straight out to the sides. So, lifting the right knee. If you can, lift the knee and foot up off of the floor, really pressing into the ground with both of your fists or hands, whichever version you are more comfortable with. If you can't get your leg off the ground, you can keep your toes and just lift the knee up. You can kind of support yourself a little bit with your back toes. Just try and lift the knee out to the side. And release. Try it again. If you're feeling pretty comfortable with getting your toes off the ground, see if you can lift a little bit higher this time. And release. And taking the left side. And pressing into the mat or carpet or ground with hands or fists. And lifting that left knee straight out to the side. Just a little bit at first. Doesn't have to be a lot. It can be just an inch off the floor. If it's your first time doing it, you're going to feel a lot right in the side of the hip here. And release. One more time, lifting the knee, maybe the foot, maybe lifting a little bit further. Making sure as you do that you are still hips and shoulders in one line. Make sure you're not leaning over. And release. Coming back to center here. One more here. We're gonna lift the right leg behind. Maybe you keep it on the floor this time, totally okay. Lift the left hand. You can keep fingers and toes on the mat if you're just getting used to this position here. Remember to bring your belly button to your spine. Find that contraction on your exhales. That strong core here. And maybe you can lift some fingers. Maybe the toes. Maybe you do a little seesaw here as you start to get used to the idea. And maybe you lift both limbs fairly evenly. Making sure you're really pressing into the mat with all the fingers of your right hand, dialing out towards that pinky. Press in with the top of the left foot. Don't let your spine collapse. Reach with your left hand and your right heel, and then release. We'll take the other side right away. So left leg coming back. Get comfortable with that left hand or fist. You can totally take a fist here. It is harder to balance. I still recommend the hand. Oh, you know what? I'm going to try it. Sure, why not? Bringing the right hand forward. And seeing if we can teeter-totter a little. Definitely harder for balance with the fist. I'm going to come back to hand. Dialing out towards that left pinky, right hand forward, left heel back. Lifting the core and really engaging through your exhale. And release. Walk the hands forward, little vinyasa, coming through our plank. Inhale, find your core. Exhale, all the way down. Inhale, little baby cobra, lift. Exhale, release. We'll stay in this little baby cobra posture for just a moment here. Make sure your hands aren't too far down or too far forward. We want them somewhere under the shoulders. And really press into the mat with the pubic bone. Tops of the feet staying grounded here as well. And lifting up, bringing the shoulder blades together. And release. Inhale, lifting up, press into the ground with the pubic bone. You can press in a little bit with the hands, bring the shoulder blades together. And release. One more time, lifting up as we inhale, baby cobra. If you're feeling good on your exhale, stay here. If you feel like you've had enough, you can take a little rest here. Totally okay. If you feel like you would like a little bit more today, you can maybe walk those hands behind. Palms come towards the thighs. Really reach back with the fingers like you're trying to reach your feet here. Staying relaxed in the jaw, reaching crown of the head towards the wall in front of you. Fingers in the opposite direction. And release. We'll bring our hands underneath our shoulders. Press into the mat. Dial the hands out towards the pinky. Shoulder blades together. Press all the way up. And back to child's pose. Take 3 breaths here. And then whenever you are ready, walking the hands up. So we come to sit on our heels. You can sit at the back of your mat. I'm just moving to face you. And we'll bring the arms up overhead. See if you can turn the palms behind you and bend the elbows. See if you can bring your hands to the backs of the shoulders. They will likely not reach all the way down your back, but maybe you can reach your ears today. Maybe you can start to kind of find the tops of the shoulders. As long as you are not crunching the back of your neck and really making a huge arc here, trying to get your hands behind you. You don't have to get your hands all the way behind you. That's just where we're aiming for. So just a nice little stretch. If you're not used to some of those kind of push-up positions, these muscles here, triceps, are probably going to be pretty sore. And then we'll bring the hands back down. If you're comfortable here sitting on your heels, you can stay here, or you can come through to a cross-legged position. We'll bring the right hand to the mat. Inhale, lift the left arm overhead, and just a little side bend. Like you're trying to reach over on top of the countertop here. Doesn't have to be big, just a little one. As long as you're reaching up and over, keep your shoulder down. Try not to reach with the shoulder coming up towards your ear. We're trying to stretch this bottom part here, maybe a little bit into the hip. You might feel it a little in the lower back. And maybe walking the hand out, making a little bit of a bigger stretch here. And then inhale, reaching that left hand up overhead, shoulder back and down, just reaching through the arm. And release, left hand to the mat. Inhale, right arm up, keep the shoulder down, reach through the arm, reach up and over, a little side stretch in the right side. I'm trying to reach up and over on top of the counter on this side. If it feels okay, maybe bringing the left hand out a little more. If it doesn't feel okay, that's fine. You can totally stay here too. This is also a good stretch. Inhale, coming back to straighten the spine, reaching up with the right arm, and then exhale, bringing it back down. If you are comfortable to bring the soles of your feet together here, or you can just bring your feet down to touch, maybe starting to get them used to the idea of facing. If you are able to come into somewhat of a cobbler's pose here, holding the ankles or holding the toes. And we're gonna bring the knees up and down, active butterfly stretch here. Just working a little bit more of those hip muscles. And then letting the legs relax, leaning forward just a little bit, trying to keep that spine straight again. Not letting ourselves bend at the lower back and not coming into a huge arc, but just trying to keep the belly button lifted towards the lower back and then hinging forward from the hips. You should be feeling it somewhere in the inside of the thighs. You might be feeling it in the hips as well. You should not feel it in the back. If you feel it in the spine, just sit up. That's okay. It's okay to stay here and just work on getting the knees down a little bit. And then we'll bring the knees together. If you need to use your hands to lift them up, that sometimes helps. We'll come back to our lying on our back position here. Lifting the right ankle and putting the right ankle over the left knee. This might be enough for you here, just this action of getting this leg starting to get used to this reclined pigeon posture here. If you feel like you're doing okay here, you can reach through, grab behind the left thigh, and pull the left knee towards the left shoulder. Should start to feel a good stretch in that right outer hip as well. And then release. We'll switch over, so bring your right foot back to the mat, left ankle over right knee, and find whichever version of pigeon was most comfortable for you. You don't have to go into the full stretch if you're already feeling it just in the beginning part. You can just stay in that beginning part. You don't want to pull yourself into a position that you cannot get out of. Trust me. And release. Making sure your back is comfortable here. If it feels okay to straighten the legs, you totally can. If you have any kind of lower back issues, it's probably more comfortable to keep the knees bent, feet on the mat. This can be your Shavasana position, totally fine. We'll just do a couple wrist circles, because they did work hard today. Another way. And reaching hands out towards the ceiling. Palms facing down. Bring your palms down so they're parallel with the floor, or with the goal of getting them parallel to the floor. Just stretching out the backs of the forearms here, backs of the wrists. And then bringing the fingertips up, bringing the backs of the hands towards you as though you're holding the ceiling up over top of you. Try and see if you can pull your fingers back. Open the fingers really wide. And release. A couple more wrist circles. And let your arms come down to your sides, palms facing up. Just come back to your breath. Notice how you're breathing now. Notice any of those pain spots, if they were bothering you during the practice, if you noticed them. If they got a little more upset with you, if they're quiet now, maybe. Take whatever adjustments you need in order to make sure that they're quiet. And walk the knees a little bit apart, or walk the feet a little bit apart. Let the knees fall in towards each other so you can relax in your Shavasana, our final posture today. Thank you so much for joining me for your practice today. I'm very glad that you chose to share this moment with me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.